Hi there folks. In this video I'd like to talk a little bit about reloading data for the 303 Savage round. Now the 303 Savage is a thoroughly obsolete round, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't have any use and that it's not fun to load some rounds up and shoot. Most of the ammo you'll come across will be this old stuff. Here's some old Dominion 303 Savage. This is the traditional load, 190 grain soft point. Here we've got a rather ratty box of Remington, also a heavy bullet, but a 180 grain. But we're here mostly to talk about reloading, and you might be able to find some old brass like this stuff here. This is some old Canadian Dominion stuff. There's also Winchester Western, Remington. I think there's some Federal brass around. This is all quite old brass, but if you want new brass, PPU manufactures the stuff. Once you've got some brass, of course, you're left with the standard reloading components: bullets, powder, primers. Those are not terribly hard to get. However, what can be hard to get is loading data. And I happen to have quite a few older loading books, and it's a good thing that I do, because there is a distinct lack of load data in current manuals for this old cartridge. Now, I can understand why the loading companies or manual companies don't make new data for this, because there's a limited pool of rifles out there. Brass has been hard to find, and basically only the Savage 99 has ever been chambered for the 303 Savage, so probably not a really big demand. Anyway, I thought I'd show you guys some of the load data that I had on hand when I dug through my collection of old manuals. You can see this is the Lyman number 43 handbook. And if we have a look in here, you can see this is from 1964, I believe is what that says. And there's a couple of sections of data in here with the 303 Savage. Let's see. This could be handy for any of you who don't have this book. You can feel free to, of course, to pause this and peruse the data at your convenience. So we've got our drawing of the cartridge, which gives some important dimensions like the trim to length, or the maximum case length, which is good to have. And we've got some data for 80 grain jacketed, 110 grain jacketed, 150 grain, 170 and 180, and the traditional 303 Savage favorite load, the 190 grain jacketed. I believe Burns actually makes a bullet which is suitable for the 303 Savage in a 190 grain. Basically, if you're picking bullets, jacketed bullets for hunting purposes for the 303 Savage, you should really stick to bullets that are rated for 30-30 type velocities, because the jacket thickness will be appropriate for the kind of velocities you'll get out of the 303 Savage, which is very much similar to the 303, the 30-30 Winchester. So we've got that section in this book, and we also have some cast bullet data here in the back. Specific cast bullet data for the 303 Savage, not to be confused with the 303 British, of course. So there you go. We've got some data for the 311 241 plain base bullet. Some more data for the 311 466. We got 165 and 170 grain data there, and some 175 grain data there. So that's this book. So hopefully that is of use to some of you guys who are looking for load data. Move on to another Lyman book here. This is an older book as well, Lyman Handbook of Cast Bullets. I think this is a 1950s, late 1950s book. I think 50, oh there we go. This one is from 1958. So we've got some data in here. Well, sort of. This is not really data, but it's an interesting point, and it's a good one to keep in mind. For listings for the 303 Savage, they say use the same cast bullets and charges listed with 30-30 Winchester. So that's a good point. The 303 Savage has a larger case capacity slightly than the 30-30 does, and they use the same diameter bullet, of course, and they have about the same velocity range. So it's nice to see that in a manual they actually quote using 30-30 data in your 303 Savage. In my experience, what's going to happen is you're going to get a little less performance out of the 303 Savage if you use 30-30 data because of the difference in case capacity. So it's seems to be quite safe to use 3030 data in your 303 Savage, although not 3030 ammunition. Don't do that. That's the wrong size. They will not interchange. All right. Next Lyman book is the Lyman 45th edition. And what is the date on this one? This one's 1970 is the date on this one. And they have moved the data from the front portion of the book, which is where most of the rifle data would be, and they have put it in the back in its own little section with what they call obsolete, or yeah, I guess it's just basically obsolete cartridges. So what's it say here? Just we'll look at the front page here. There are some rounds in here which are quoted as being, yeah, data for obsolete and semi-obsolete cartridges. Some of these have come back from the grave, as it were, because of things like cowboy action shooting, but some of them have not. So we'll we got 30 Remington data here, and here's what we're looking for: 303 Savage data. So once again, anybody who needs to have a good close look at this, you can always freeze your player and have a look at the data in depth. So we've got 110 grain, 150 grain, 170, so we've got some 173 grain cast data, and some 193 grain cast data. So that might be of use. You'll notice that the powders that are being quoted in these are sort of the old school standard powders, you know, IMR powders, unique, 2400, etc. So kind of old school standard powders. So there's that. And then the final source that I could find with load data was this 3rd edition Lyman cast bullet handbook. This is probably the book that got me really going into cast bullets. I got this book probably 30 years ago, and it's seen quite a bit of use, and it's still a handy book to have. If you're a really serious reloader, especially for old calibers, you owe it to yourself to hunt down as many old manuals as you can find. So here's the data that they give for the 303 Savage. Nice big line drawing in this particular manual with all the dimensions, and they have the usual commentary down below, their test components, test specifications, and they give you a couple of loads there. So this is kind of limited in what you get, and that's about it. Once again, you've got 3030 data, which you can pretty much stick into your 303 Savage and have a starting point for it there. Anyway, just thought I'd show you guys that stuff. If you do a search online for kind of downloadable data for 303 Savage, you're not going to find very much. I think there might be some stuff on the Hogden website. They might have a load or two. I'll have to have another look. But basically there's next to nothing available online for load data. So anyway, for those of you out there who might be doing some loading for the 303 Savage, I just thought I'd share that with you. And best of luck with your 303 Savage loading endeavors. Anyway, talk to you later. Have a good one.